Should you buy or rent a certain piece of filmmaking equipment? That's a great question no matter where you're at in your career. And I'm going to give you my personal recommendation at the end of the video. But first, let's get into 10 questions that you should ask yourself to figure out whether or not a purchase is a good decision for you or if you should just rent instead. These questions are meant to help you look at things objectively and kind of detach yourself so you're not making emotional purchase decisions. The idea is you should be purchasing equipment that's going to help make you more money, get you more jobs, help you master certain skills. So question number one that you should ask yourself is, can I borrow this equipment for free? Can I use it for free? Maybe you have a friend, maybe you are a part of a school, maybe you can find a mentor, somebody that is willing to, give a little bit to you so that you can learn a piece of equipment or so you can go and shoot on a job. The number one thing is if you don't ask, then you're never going to receive. So if you don't ask, then you'll never know whether someone might have been willing to help you. So, just ask, especially if you're starting out. There's plenty of people out there who are probably willing to help you out and lend you a piece of equipment, assuming that you have proven yourself to be a responsible person and you're not going to destroy their stuff. That probably goes without saying, but there you go. So number one, can you borrow this equipment? So the second question is, can you rent it at a reasonable cost that fits your budget? Depending on where you're at, say you're a beginner, maybe you're not charging very much, maybe you're getting paid nothing. So renting it is either going to come out of your pocket or it's going to end up eating up your entire budget or a large chunk of your budget. I've dealt with that personally and I totally understand. It is painful if you're charging, say, $500 to shoot a music video. Okay, that's for a whole day of shooting and that's for editing and everything, and you have to spend $100 on equipment. It may not be a lot in the big scope of things, but it feels pretty painful when you're only getting paid $500, so that's a fifth of your whole budget. So that being said, can you rent the equipment at a rate that's reasonable given your budget? If you're not going to use the equipment very often, if it's just something that you're going to use this one time and you don't know when you're going to use it again in the future, rent it. For example, the first paid project me and my brother ever did was a music video, and we were ecstatic that someone was going to pay us like, I think $1,000, $1,100 was the whole budget, including like travel and food and everything. But we were so excited to have that, and so we had a little bit of money that we set aside so that we could rent the equipment that we needed. We had really nothing at that time, so we rented a jib and we rented a Canon 5D Mark II, I believe. And so those were things that we didn't know if we were going to use them again in the future or when we might use them. Certainly we weren't going to be needing to purchase a jib, nor did we have the money to do something like that, and we weren't in a position to buy a camera yet. So renting those was a great, relatively affordable option. We spent maybe a couple $100 and it helped us do a good job on the project, so it was totally worth it. Question number three is, if you buy it instead of rent the equipment, will it allow you to master a set of skills that is going to help you get more work in the future or be able to charge more money for what it is you do? For example, if you didn't own a gimbal, and a lot of people are hiring people to do gimbal work, then investing in a gimbal might be a good idea, because now you can take it and you can use it whenever you want, and you can really, really get good at using the gimbal and getting great smooth footage. Whereas if you're really not that comfortable or familiar with it, your results might be less than ideal. So that's a situation where making an investment in a piece of equipment can help actually enable you to charge more or get more jobs, because someone comes to you and says, hey, I need someone to run gimbal to capture footage at an event. You may think, well, do we really need to shoot it on gimbal? What if we do this or that, the other thing? That's an understandable question to ask. However, at the end of the day, if you have someone that's wanting to hire you and they have a specific look that they're going for, they like things done a certain way, they are going to give preference to people that have the skills to do the thing the way they want to do it. That's just the way it is. Buying a piece of equipment can help you master it because you have it all the time, and that can help you get more work. So question number 4 is, will that piece of equipment be needed on short notice relatively often, and is something that you can't rent in your local area, or it's not practical or really possible to get it on short notice? Some examples might be, say you're in an area where there's not really any good camera rental shops around you, so you have to ship in from something like Lens Rentals. Or say it's a piece of specialty equipment that's not available in your area, you don't know anyone that has it. That's a situation where you might want to consider buying it, as long as it's something that you're going to use relatively often, because now you're the guy that has that piece of equipment. You can use it on last minute notice, and you're not going to have it shipped in from somewhere else. So that's another reason why it might make sense to buy instead of rent. So question number 5 is, will you use the equipment at least one time a month? I think that's a good number to aim for. If you're using a piece of equipment at least once a month, then it starts to get to the point, depending on what the equipment is, where it makes more financial sense to buy it than to rent it. It's going to end up costing you more to rent it than to buy it. There's also the opportunity cost. There's the cost of time. There's also the energy and the time that it takes to pick up and return equipment every single time you use it if you're renting. So if you're using a piece of equipment a lot, it can become quite annoying or just draining to have to go and pick stuff up and return it every single time you're going to a shoot. So that's why if you're using a piece of equipment at least once a month, then it's a sign that it might make good sense to buy that instead of rent it. So question number 6 kind of ties into 5, and that is it going to be more expensive to rent that piece of equipment than it is to buy it? So if you're using a piece of equipment enough, let's say it costs $100 a day to rent, the equipment costs $1,000. If I'm going to use that once a month, that's $1,200. At that point, it doesn't really make sense to rent anymore. Start saving up some money, buy that piece of equipment. Now you don't have to pay any more rental fees. That is, in my opinion, a very sound business decision as far as buying equipment goes. So question number 7 to consider is whether that piece of equipment that you're going to buy holds fairly good long-term value. A lot of equipment in our industry doesn't hold its value in terms of resale. That's how it is. It's electronics for the most part. So there's going to be new models of stuff that's going to come out. It's going to devalue the old stuff. It is what it is. But another way to look at value is not necessarily resale value, but is that going to be an item that is going to be in demand for quite a long time to come. So if it's an item that you think is going to be in demand or useful for the next 5 years, that's great. 10 years, even better. So things like grip equipment can be fairly pricey, in my opinion, to start up front, but they hold their value for potentially decades. So you can use them and use them and use them, and they're always going to be helpful. Something like a camera, a new camera might come out and maybe it's kind of the hot new thing at the moment, but it's been out so short of a time. Maybe it's from like one of the less popular brands. That are people going to be wanting you to shoot on that camera in 3 to 5 years? That's a great question. If it's a cheap camera, maybe it doesn't matter that much. But if you're going to spend $30,000 on a camera or $10,000 or whatever, think carefully about whether that's something that is going to be useful for you. You're going to be able to use it on your projects for the next at least 3 to 5 years, and I think is a good number to look at. Another thing as far as equipment holding value is the equipment going to pay for itself over time? So if you're able to charge it to projects, is it going to pay for itself after a year, 2 years? That's something to think about. Are people going to want it enough to do that? A great example is I would love to get either like a DJI 4D camera, or I'd love to have a Red Raptor. However, the kind of work that I do, it's going to be rare that I'm going to be able to justify that cost for a client's project. So it doesn't really make financial sense for me to do that when a lesser camera will accomplish the same job. So it's great that I want that camera, but it's really not something that if I have to charge $500 a day for that camera versus $150 or $100 for like a Sony mirrorless camera, and I get the same job done, it's hard to justify that cost for myself. So is the piece of equipment going to pay for itself through your projects over time? Question number 8 is, can this piece of equipment be rented out over the course of the year to help offset its cost? Some people aren't comfortable doing this. They're worried that, something is going to happen to their equipment. It's going to get damaged, stolen, whatever. And that's definitely a risk. However, in my personal experience, it's renting a lot through ShareGrid and sometimes like to people I know or through my website. I've had very few issues. And if you have decent insurance, then and make sure that you set things up right, then you're going to be covered if something happens. So if that piece of equipment is something that is going to cause serious problems if it's gone for like 1 or 2 weeks, then maybe don't rent that item out. But if it's something that, hey, you know what, if something happens to this piece of equipment and it needs to get repaired or replaced, I can wait 1 or 2 weeks and I'll be okay. Or I can, rent a replacement for a day if something comes up during that time frame. That's the worst case scenario, pretty much. So if you're good with that potential of that happening, which is still low, then I think it's worth renting it because you are going to get the equipment to help pay for itself. So I think that's great. I mean, if the equipment's just sitting around and it's not doing anything, then rent it out, I think. It's worked for me, so it could probably work for you. So question number 9 is, will the equipment significantly improve the quality of your work? I'll give you an example. So a few years ago, I didn't really have any significant lights. Like I had a small tungsten light kit, but I didn't have like a big key light or anything like that. So the Aperture 600D, when it got released, I was ecstatic because now I had access to this light that was relatively affordable for me and could give me a lot of light output, and that opened up a lot of doors for me. For example, something that you need to shoot and light great interviews is you typically need a pretty powerful key light, especially if you want to do more complicated setups where you need to do bouncing and stuff. Every time you bounce or diffuse through material, you're losing light, right? So having that really powerful light really opened up doors for me, and being able to do nice high key lighting, like in a kitchen, for example. We did a shoot where we just blast that guy into the corner of the room and we light up the whole room. Or putting a nice big softbox on the light and having just really nice, soft, beautiful lighting on somebody. It was something that now allowed me to get more practice lighting interviews because I had that piece of equipment all the time, and it allowed me to build up a collection of examples of interviews that I'd lit, which allowed me to get more work shooting interviews, which is a very common thing in sort of corporate marketing world. So that allowed me to get more work. Like I had the light, I could practice my lighting. I then had great samples of work shooting and lighting interviews. And then when people were asking, hey, I need somebody to help me shoot and light an interview, great. I can show you that I have and I can do it. And that was something that I couldn't do before. So that is an example of how a piece of equipment substantially improved the quality of my work, and it helped me show people what I could do and get paid more and get paid to do more jobs. So that's my example. So number 10, and the final question to ask yourself is, will this piece of equipment significantly improve efficiency, speed, or reliability of me working on set? For example, recently I bought some Falcam F38, I think they're called, quick release plates. I bought a couple sets of them, and I had a different brand before, but they're pretty pricey for what they are. It's like $40-50 for a set. But the reason why I'm willing to invest in that is because it significantly improves my efficiency when I'm working on set. I can go from my handheld rig to a gimbal very quickly and not potentially waste shooting time, but also like during those kinds of transitions, you can miss important moments of whatever's going on, especially if you're at something like an event. So I like to be able to be snappy, quick, and be able to switch back and forth, from my handheld rig to my gimbal to my tripod very easily. And so that's why I'm willing to invest in something like that. So that's just one example. Another example might be like organizational items. Like I bought some cord bags. They are pretty expensive for what they are. I think they're nice and like well built. But the thing for me is it's less about the cost of the bag, and it's more about I'm investing in organizational tools for me on set so that I can be quicker, be more organized, look professional, so clients aren't seeing me like, oh, where is this thing? I don't know, and like searching bags for 5 minutes and wasting time. But I'm like, I know exactly where everything is. I put it in the same place every time. Everything is labeled. That's my preference. It helps me with efficiency. This is a great example. I have bought like a number of carts, but I bought this double decker foldable wagon that has been so helpful, and it was like, I don't know, 150 bucks. And that has been such a great 150 bucks, like totally worth it, because it's helped us on set so much. And I'm shocked the number of times where that little wagon comes in handy, where you think, I don't really need a wagon. And then I'm like, you know what, I'll just bring it just in case. And it ends up just it saves my back. You end up spending less energy moving stuff around. It's quicker, more efficient, and just helps smooth out shoots so much. So that's one of those things where it's like, absolutely yes. So those are the 10 questions to ask yourself to help you figure out whether or not you should buy versus rent a piece of equipment. So I promised you that I would give you my personal recommendations to you on whether you should buy versus rent something. I would say generally try and save money where you can. There's a few base items that are really going to help you a lot. And then there's some items that they're cool to have, but whether or not they make a big impact for you is going to depend on your situation. So some examples of things that are just generally helpful for you, and they always will be, if you're shooting and lighting and doing that kind of thing. Depends on what your job is, but for somebody like me, having a small kit of tools is very helpful. Stuff like hexes, screwdriver, just like I basically have a bundle of stuff that I keep adding to when I find, you know what, it would have been nice to have a zip tie or whatever. So a small bag of tools is awesome to have and helps you save the day on set. Another thing that's great is just a basic 3-point lighting kit. You can do so much with a decent 3-point lighting kit, and I think people overcomplicate lighting, especially stuff like this. I have 4 lights in here. I have a key light, I have a hair light up here, which is just a small rig light, and I have 2 tube lights. I can do without the tube lights. And in most situations when I'm doing lighting and shooting for clients, I am doing it with 2 lights. So you can do a lot. You can do a lot with 3 lights. So getting something like one of the cheaper Amaran kits, a 3-light kit with 1 softbox is going to take you pretty far. Another thing that I think is great is to buy used whenever you can. There's a lot of items in what we do that if they are pretty well taken care of and they're in good condition, then it's just like free money, honestly, to buy used. I buy used all the time. There are only a few things that I won't buy used. Maybe more fragile lights, like tube lights. It depends on the quality of the product. Like the more high end the product is, the more well built they are, and the more they're going to take punishment over time. So you're less likely to have problems. So any of my cameras or lenses that I've bought, I buy used. Anytime I buy like an expensive light, we're talking over $500. Those are usually built really well, and they're going to be in good condition when you buy them. Stuff like smaller electronics, I usually don't. That's just my preference. So yeah, buy used when you can. It's going to save you a lot of money. So the last couple notes that I have for you is make do and learn how to master the tools that you have at your disposal. So get some basic stuff that's going to get you most of the way there, and then really learn how to get the most out of that stuff that you can. Because if you spend $1,000 over here, it's $1,000 you can't spend over here, right? So if you can master the tools that you have and learn to get good results with them, now it's going to just make everything you do that much better. And you can figure out as you learn where that money will be best spent, most wisely spent on equipment. And also, like I said, you spend $1,000 here, you can't spend it over here. It might be better to save that money for something else. So just learn the tools at your disposal first and master those is my personal advice to you. So that's all I got for you today. 10 questions that you can ask yourself to help you figure out whether you should borrow, rent, or buy a piece of equipment. I wish I had this knowledge when I got started. Like I said at the beginning, I think I've made some poor purchase decisions. There's stuff I'm like, why did I get that? It like sits around and I never use it. So just hoping that some of this will help you avoid some of the mistakes that I've made. If you like this video, hit the like button, hit subscribe, and watch another one of our videos. If you found this information useful, then there's probably something else on the channel that you'll find interesting. Again, thanks for watching the video. Bye.